Hello retro gamers and welcome to episode 2 of RGO Goes Op Shopping, in brackets, thrifting, because that's what we call thrifting in Australia, op shopping. If you've missed episode 1, I released it about a month ago, and I've basically filmed and followed my exploits of going to op shops and finding retro games, or rather just retro secondhand goodies that take my fancy. And it's really quite random what I do and don't want to grab, as you'll see, and as you probably may have seen in the first video. So if you haven't seen the first video, please go check that out. This is the follow-up to that. And I'm not going to say this in every single video, but I just want to get it out of the way just in case you missed it the first time around. Yes, I'm 100% ripping off LGR thrifts by Lazy Game Reviews. But I think that's okay, because I emailed him and I asked for his blessings. He said it was fine as long as I didn't outright copy his music and his title cards and stuff like that, which I don't think I did in the first one. I think I've got my own thing here, and the feedback that you guys left in the first video was very encouraging, so thank you very much for watching. And yeah, enough rambling. Without further ado, let's hit the shops. Today's episode's adventure starts in a place called AYLA Incorporated. This can be found in the industrial area of Coburn Central and is quite a unique place. Not only is there an op shop in this rather large location, but there's also a cafe. Heading through the entrance, I spotted a cabinet full of games. And while there was a fairly healthy selection here, mostly of PS3, Xbox One and DS games, there wasn't really anything that was tickling my fancy. Checking the other cabinet, and it was mostly just full of Wii and Disney Infinity stuff, so again, of no interest to me. It was at this point I thought I was getting in trouble for filming, because I was just walking around with my phone, as you do, and one of the co-workers walked past and sort of mumbled something at me. I didn't quite hear what he said, so I asked him to say it again, and what he actually said was, "Nice mustache." So props to that guy for having good taste in facial hair, and I was also happy that I wasn't getting in trouble. That appears to be all the games for the most part. They've put them all in one place. Although I did find some PC Power Play demos. These weren't really old enough to be of much interest to me, so moving on. The only other thing of note was this sick electric keyboard. Now I have no space for a keyboard, let alone the skills to play one, but I do enjoy looking at these. They're just so aesthetically pleasing. I don't think I've ever seen a double tiered one before either, so that was definitely quite cool. I just want to point out that this is not my local area. I don't really live south of the river, but the reason I was down there is because I was picking up this. Yes, another 3DO. Hopefully, this will help me troubleshoot the other one. I picked up this from another retro gamer, who also threw in the GameCube disk drive and mod chip you might have seen from the video where I was fixing the GameCube that was found in the vacant and wet lot. Moving on to a Salvo's nearby, and the first thing I spot in the cabinet is this old Sony Camcorder. Look at this beast. I was pretty tempted to buy it, honestly, and it was $100, which is probably less than I'd expect somewhere like Salvo's to try and flog it for, but I just assumed there was something wrong with it. I don't really have a use for it anyway, and it would take up too much space. But fortunately, just around the corner, the cabinet was full of games. This was a nice surprise because I really struggled to find a nice selection of games in my previous op shopping adventures. Here there was a nice selection of PSP, PS2, PS4, as well as a buttload of PC titles. A lot of the stuff there I already own, but I did cherry pick 2 titles. Resistance Retribution for PSP, as well as Far Cry New Dawn on the PS4. These were $15 each, and while $15 might be a little bit too much for a PSP game, it's just about right for a PS4 game, so I decided that would be coming home with me. I also found a couple of PS1 games tucked away in the corner. These were Siphon Filter 2 and In Cold Blood. I can't remember how much they were selling them for, but I already own both of these titles, so I left them there for someone else to find. Also in that cabinet, I found these weird Ibm Storage Cartridges that are 800 gigabytes each. No idea what these are for. I'm guessing it must be for some sort of service solution. These were also priced at $15. I guess they just like pricing things at $15 at this particular Salvo's. Either that or their pricing gun's broken. And just around the corner from that was a Good Sammy's. Unfortunately, the games department here was lacking compared to the Salvo's, just a selection of sports games. But I did find this. Yes, a snowboard. If you don't know, I live in Perth, Australia, which is on the western side of Australia, and there is absolutely no snow here. There is one particular mountain here down south that gets an absolute microbe of snow every year, but otherwise a snowboard in Perth is about as useless as I don't know. It's pretty useless though, I'll tell you that. Although maybe this is a sandboard, that could be a bit more useful. On to another Salvo's now, and I must say, this has the worst parking I've ever encountered for such a large Salvo's. This idiot here in the forward drive was just idling out the front too, blocking the little bays that were available, so I had to kind of awkwardly reverse out and pass across the road. I was actually quite surprised just how large this op shop was, but eventually I found my way to the games department, discovering all the Wii Fits and FIFAs a man could ever want. In my case, that number is 0, so I kept ambling around the store. In the electronics department, I found this. A big Canon calculator that prints. Yes, basically a large version of the smaller one I bought last episode, which I couldn't get to work. This one can't suffer from battery corrosion because it plugs straight into the wall. And even though I looked around the store, I couldn't find a single PowerPoint anyway. You do get receipts when you buy these things, so I figured I would just give it a punt. This was also missing its price. At the counter, I was told it was $20, but I had $5 on my Salvo club card, so I got it for $15. Lucky me. Close by, I also found this little LCD game which runs a clone of Tetris. I didn't buy it today because I already own one of these. You may remember in a repair video quite a while ago, I cleared a bunch of battery corrosion out of one of these. Funnily enough, I don't think I've touched it since. However, on waiting in line to get served, I noticed there was a bunch of gaming stuff in the cabinet next to the counter. To the left, we have a Game Boy Advance, which was $95, so that stayed there, as well as a bunch of Game Boy Color, Game Boy, and Game Boy Advance games. I had to go into the cabinet and find out the prices for each one individually, since the prices were all at the bottom, so you couldn't tell from the cabinet, which is always annoying. But these range from $25 to $45, and there wasn't really anything there of interest to me, so they all got left for someone else as well. Moving on now to a place down the road, this is an independent op shop called Rags to Riches.
Morning.
Again, the game selection was pretty lacking, mostly sports and kids titles. However, I did find this, Murder on the Titanic, a mystery jigsaw puzzle. That's pretty interesting. I've never seen a jigsaw puzzle before. Lastly, on this little strip of op shops, I found one by the RSPCA. And, oddly enough, I didn't find a single game in this store, not even a Sims or a FIFA or any crap like that, which is a bit bizarre to say the least. Although I did find all these old Simpsons comics, which I did enjoy reading as a kid. On to a more familiar Good Sammys now, and it appears they've moved their game collection. With it being moved, there were also a few new titles, as I've noticed the stock here had more or less stayed the same for a couple of months. I was interested in this Splinter Cell because I always love a little bit of Splinter Cell, but I was put off by this little message. Basically, it means an internet connection is required to play, which probably means that this can only be activated once, essentially making this disc useless, which is pretty annoying for a second-hand collector. Probably about the most interesting thing I found was this, a very vaguely labelled case which just said Super Mario History 1985 to 2010. Checking the back and we don't really have any more clues, it just lists all the games you'd expect from 1985 to 2010. Opening it up reveals that it's actually a soundtrack CD, which is pretty cool. I'm sure it'd be pretty cool for some people, but not me. I didn't buy this because, frankly, I'm just never going to listen to this CD, ever. But it was pretty cool that it was there. I wonder where it came from. I also got a little bit of a laugh from this little message printed on the CD. Otherwise, I did find this big box PC game in the cabinet for $20, although it does look like it's sealed. I've never heard of Evil Twin before. It appears to be a platformer from the early 2000s, but it didn't really cause much excitement within me, so I decided to leave it. But if you think it's a good game, please let me know, as I believe it is still sitting there. Okay, on to the independent place next door. On the way to the electronics section, past the How and Where to Find Gemstones book, I approached that shelf where I missed out on that camera from the last episode. There was nothing of that sort this time though, so I went to the game section to also find nothing of interest. On the way out, I gave the display case a second look and couldn't believe that I missed a Polaroid, specifically a Polaroid Lan Camera 2000 for only $6. Not wanting to remake the mistake I made last time where I decided to look in some other shops and come back and grab the camera, I bought it on the spot. For $6, that is 100% coming home with me. Okay, moving on to a different part of Perth now, and into a Vinnie's. While there wasn't really much of interest here, I did want to point out these PS4 games, which are becoming a more and more common sight in op shops. These are only $5 each as well, although there was nothing here that interested me. Into the Good Sammys next door, and I found a Mac. Specifically one running Snow Leopard, which originated from October 2009. Seemed like a pretty good kit all in all. It said it had been prepared for a new owner, with the only issue being slight buzzing coming from the speakers. The whole thing was $100, and to be honest, I was pretty tempted, but I really don't need more crap like this filling up my house, so I left it for someone else. I do, however, need stuff like this filling up my house. A joystick. Boxed, no less. Now there isn't anything specifically special about this one, but I've just been wanting to get a joystick for a while as I don't actually own one. But now I do. This only cost $5 too, so went straight into the boot of my car. Into a salvos now and straight to the game section, which as per usual is full of stuff that interests me very little. I did however find this, which interested me quite a bit more. Yes, it's a Betamax from the late 70s or early 80s. I looked it up at the time, but can't really remember right now. Anyway, this is a Sanyo Vtc 9300, and it has the cool little pop-up tray for the tapes to go into, which I always found really awesome. I also enjoyed the selection of odd and outdated video and audio outputs and inputs out the back. Yeah, they just don't make machines like this anymore. I was very tempted to buy this. It was only $80, but honestly, I've never seen a Betamax tape in my life. In fact, this is the first player I've ever seen, so I don't know. It took all my will, but I decided to leave it because I just don't know what I would do for this, and an old video players just aren't really my ballpark. But still, I really enjoyed looking at this. Really cool to see. Into a completely separate salvos now, and in the case next to the counter, I was happy to see a bunch of PlayStation 1 games. Better yet, these were incredibly well priced at only $3 each. Sadly for me, I actually own nearly all of these, except for Need for Speed High Stakes, which I of course bought. But to see Croc, Crash Bandicoot and Spyro 2 all for $3 each is amazing value. These games go for at least $40 on eBay. Still, I'll leave those for someone else, and I was just really happy to pick up this Need for Speed High Stakes for only $3. Check out that fully sick HSV on the cover. Okay, into a Save the Children now, and going straight to the game section, there were a bunch of Xbox games for only $3 each. Unfortunately, these were mostly sports games. I think there probably would have been a better selection here that has already been cherry picked. The only thing that took my fancy here was Project Gotham Racing, but consulting my list, it turns out I already own it, so that got left on the shelf. Heading around the corner, I found this fat PS2 for $80, which isn't actually too bad of a deal since it came with 3 controllers, plus all the original hookups. This thing was absolutely disgusting though. Look how much dirt is in this thing, I doubt it even boots up. I already own something like 5 PS2s, so I didn't pick this up, but that may or may not be a good pickup for someone else, as long as they're okay cleaning it. On the shelf next to that, I found a bag of Miscellaneous Wii Accessories. I actually own a couple of Wiis, but I don't own any accessories at all, so at the time this felt like a pretty good deal for $30. At the end of the video, we'll open it up and we'll see what's actually in there. I went across the road and checked out a salvos, and unfortunately there wasn't really anything in here, which is kind of sad considering how massive this store is. All I found was this, Buzz, the music quiz, boxed and complete for $6. Did I buy this? No. Into yet another good Sammys, and next to a rather large selection of The Sims, I found Red Faction Guerrilla, which I nearly bought because I'm a huge fan of this game and I've only played it on the PS3. I don't think I even realized there was a PC port, but unfortunately there was that same message as earlier in the video. Yeah, I don't think this thing is worth any more than the cardboard it's made out of. This game would have been activated long ago, effectively making it useless. That's disappointing. I did however spot this digital Casio watch. It was $10 and I wasn't really sure if it was old or just a recreation of one, to make it look old like Casio usually do. Regardless, I kind of got put in a pressured situation. The woman had to pull it out of the cabinet for me, and then she sort of stood there awkwardly while I looked at it, and then a bunch of people started lining up at the counter, so I decided just to make a split decision for $10 and just see where it would take me. Anyway, after a hard day of op shopping, it was time to enjoy some beer and watch the AFL Grand Final. Go the Demons! So let's take a closer look at some of the items in this haul. So, starting with that watch, and yes, it turns out I was correct, it's not actually a vintage watch, even though it looks like one, just a recreation of what a vintage watch would look like, and Casio release lines like this every now and again. For those who are interested, the model number is F94W, and $10 appears to not be a very good deal at all. In fact, you can buy these brand new for $20 online, and this one has a bit of a scratch across the face, so overall, not a great deal. I guess this will just be the watch I wear now when I'm doing work outside. Checking out that bag of Wii stuff, and honestly, this wasn't that great of a deal either. There's quite a lot of filler in here, and to be honest, I'm not going to keep most of it. Looking through the bag in the store, I saw things like the sensor bar and that controller, which I do want to keep, but I thought I saw a power supply in there when I was looking at it in the store, and that's pretty much what sold me on the spot to get it. I don't know what I saw in the store, but there is definitely no power supply in here. While there is a couple of controllers, which I guess I'll keep as well, there's just lots of like crappy plastic peripherals like tennis rackets and golf sticks and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't really have any interest in that at all, as well as that steering wheel. So I'll probably just cherry pick what I want, and all the rest of it will go back in a bag and most likely back to an op shop. Here is a closer look at that joystick, and I haven't actually tested it yet as of filming this video, but cosmetically it is in quite good condition. It's cool it came in the original box, and at the bottom I also found some original pamphlets, which are always nice to flick through in the modern day. And unlike that other Canon calculator from the first episode, this one does indeed work. I didn't find any roll to test the printing function in this video, but the roller does rotate when the paper feed button is pressed, and electronically the calculator portion works well as well. Just look at that screen, I love 80s calculators. Last but not least, we have the Polaroid camera. And thankfully, this appears to work, although maybe not as well as it could. Mechanically, it works fine. It takes the photo, it spits it out, and the photos do develop. Now, I'm not sure if it's just a quirk of this camera, since I think it may have been a budget model, but you do need to be in pretty ideal lighting conditions to get any sort of photo. Regardless, I did get a few photos I liked, but the film for this is incredibly expensive. I paid $6 for this camera, but for an 8-pack of photos, it cost $30, so definitely not viable to take lots and lots of photos. But still, I didn't have a Polaroid in my collection, so I'm glad I now do. Anyway, that is the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.